Okay, so we've got our chicken shooting out. It's interacting with this barrier. It's ending the game. Now it's time for us to start getting it to score points when it leaves the game world. So in order to implement a score. So in order to do that, we're going to have to start making ourselves a game manager, a place to keep track of the score, what to do when the game's over, anything else we want to really manage, I guess. 0, tab 0. Call it game manager. Then right underneath it, there's a thing called tag. And we are going to create a tag for it. And this is so we can find it later on in our scripts. Game manager. Suppose if we wanted to, we could have closed game controller. I wanted to show you how to create tags. So, a good way to get this to work is we know on our camera that this right here is as big as our screen will ever be. So we want to make it so that when something leaves the screen, it scores a point. Well, the way we're going to do that is we are going to create some triggers. Game object, 2D object, create an empty, set it to 0, 0. And we will add our box collider 2D to it. That's clearly much larger than what we need it to be, but it's a good start. We'll scale it down a little bit. Good enough. And we'll scale it up. And then we'll move it over here. Stupid mouse. There. And then we'll rename that edge trigger. We want to turn it into a trigger. And we'll duplicate it. Move to the other side of the screen. We'll duplicate it again. We'll rotate it out and set axis 90 degrees. We'll move it up here. Make it a little bigger. Then we'll duplicate that. Move that one down here. Then to make our lives easier, we're going to take all these. Also makes it easier to find the game manager for these triggers, which you'll see in a second. We'll move them there. Parent them right to that game manager. And then just like before, edge. Script. All right. So we're literally pretty much just going to copy this. Only if you remember, when it hits the outside, we don't want it. We want it to destroy that object. Then we want it to increase the score, and we were going to track that inside the game manager. So let's go back to over here. We'll create a script for game called Game Manager. Create an add. We'll edit that as well. Okay, so over here is where we're going to track our score. And remember, if you remember, we had two of the most common variables for numbers were int and float. And since this time we know what it's going to be, that a whole number, we're always going to use an int. All right. And then we're going to create a function here. And we'll call it increase score. Do that, curly Q brackets. There. Score plus plus, and this tells us to add 1 to the score. And then for now, just like before, we're going to log it out to the console. Score. Then to get it to display that score, we say plus score. There. Excellent. Now we want to make it so that excuse me. When anything hits this edge, it will actually do this increase score function here. So in order to do that, we need to call a reference to our game manager. So we'll make it private because we don't necessarily need to see it in the inspector or play with it or anything like that. And we can call it Game Manager just like this because it's a public class. Right there. Now we just need a name for it. Game Manager. Okay. We have two ways we can try and find this. We can go, one way would be the name of the variable. We're doing it in the start so that at the beginning of the game, we tell these edges to find the game manager. We could go game object, find object with tag, and this is going to ask us for a string. This is where that tag came in before. Then we tell it which component we want. And that, of course, is the game manager. That's a lot to type out. There's a faster way to do it. Because all of these are parented right to this game manager, we don't have to search for it by tag. What we can do. Oops. That's better. Get rid of all this. And we can tell it transform dot root. And what this tells it to do, because these are all these edges are children of this game manager, it says get the root parent, which is the game manager. And if you want to make sure it actually is getting the right one, this is a little, you can use this command serialize in field. Now it'll display it in the inspector. We can't necessarily drag things from the scene and put it on top of it. It's still a private protected variable. So now that we have a reference to our game manager, we're destroying the egg, and we can tell it game manager dot, and we can just call that function increase score. Perfect. And that should do it. So we hit Control S. Game manager. Yeah. Let's try that out. And we see score equals 1. Score equals 2. Perfect. And game over. Excellent. So technically we have our game working. Now all we need to do from here is get it to start displaying that all in the UI and doing the movement from scene to scene, so on and so forth. Starts the game, ends the game, plays the game. Play some music. We'll start working on that next.